Hi, welcome to 123stitch.com. My name is Joanne. Today I want to talk about stitching with variegated thread. With normal DMC floss, you are stitching with one single consistent solid color. With variegated thread, you're stitching with thread that has different colors in it. It could be different shades of the same color family, like these pinks, or it could be something wildly different like this one. There's all different brands and they're called different things. They can be called multicolored, variegated, hand-dyed, overdyed. They're all referring to thread that is not one single consistent color. They're made by different companies: Dritz, Classic Colorworks, the Gentle Art Sampler Threads, Threadworx, Caron collection, all different kinds. You can get them in cotton, you can get them in silk. What they all have in common though is that they have those different colors in them, and because of that, for the most part, you can't stitch with it the normal way. Today I want to share with you my 5 favorite tips for stitching with a variegated thread. Before we get started though, please go down below and click on that subscribe button so you don't miss out on any upcoming videos. And any products I mentioned today will also be listed as a link down below. My first tip is to buy enough of each thread color. DMC floss is 8.7 yards. We're used to that nice length. But when it comes to some of the overdyed or hand-dyed threads, there's less on each skein. This one has 5 yards, this one's 5 yards, and this one is 6 yards. So you're going to need more than you think you do. The other reason to make sure you have enough is that dye lots can vary. So some brands are pretty consistent, others are not so consistent. So if I buy this one and then I run out of the thread maybe 4 or 5 months later and I go to buy more, it might not be exactly the same color, and that could be a problem. So buy some extra. You can always use it on a smaller project if you need to. My second tip is to make sure your thread is Colorfast if you're going to be washing it after you're done stitching. So if Colorfast is important to you, make sure that you read the tag on the thread itself or check the manufacturer's website. This one says Colorfast, this one says not Colorfast, and this one here says, although our dyes are Colorfast, be sure to test reds and dark colors. That's always a good rule of thumb. Even if it says it's Colorfast and you're going to be washing your project, make sure you test it on a scrap piece of fabric before you go ahead and wash your finished project and it runs all over the place. You'll be better off checking it first before you make a mistake that you can't correct. Tip number 3 is to not use the standard loop method of stitching when you're using 2 strands. Let me show you what happens if you do the loop method. Normally you take one long strand of floss and you fold it in half. And then you thread the loop. But you can quickly see right away what happens on this highly variegated floss. I've got blue on top of white, I've got red and blue, I've got white and blue again. It's just going to completely mess up the gradual variations that are meant to be with the thread. So instead of doing that, do single strands of floss. So I have threaded 2 single strands of floss here, making sure I had the same color facing each end. So I've got blue on blue, it matches all the way down to the end. And now I'm going to do what I call a modified loop start. There's a couple of different ways to do it, but I want to show you how I do the modified loop. I bring my needle down in the upper left hand corner of my first stitch, leave some thread hanging there. It's a little hard to see because it's white. Let me pull it out a little more so you can see the red. I leave that hanging out and just hold on to it. I bring my needle up in the upper right hand corner of my stitch. I'll go back down in the same hole, leaving a little loop. Bring my needle up in the lower left hand corner of my stitch. Where is it? There we go. And then go through the loop and then bring my thread back down in that same hole. Now I can complete my X and continue stitching. I usually do just a couple of stitches and then I can go ahead and trim that end. It is already locked in place. It's not going anywhere. So I just do a couple of stitches, and then I will go ahead and get my scissors, and I will clip the thread. I try not to clip it too close. And then what I do is I get my Snag Nabbit tool, which I have talked about before. Love this. I just put it through that needle, and it gets rid of that little tail that was hanging out there. So this is locked firmly in place, and I still got to do my loop method. So I like this method a lot. However, you can also do, some people like to do a waist knot. And let me show you how you do that. I've got a knot in the end of my thread, still using 2 single skeins of floss. I'm sorry, 2 single lengths of floss, knotted at the end. I'm going to go to the right of where I want to start stitching from the top and just leave that little knot on the top. Now I'm going to go back to where I was stitching, where I want to start stitching, and I'm just going to go ahead and keep stitching away here. And as I do this, I'll turn this over so you can see, it's covering that thread. That's just the thread that was carried over. I'm stitching over that thread and locking it in place. So once I've done my stitches across, I'm just going to do a couple more here so you can see. Okay, once I've stitched over enough of that thread on the back side that I feel like it is caught, I'm going to go ahead and cut my knot away. And you can do that from the top side, you can do it from the back side. I'm going to just pull this up a tiny bit and do it from the front. Oops. And there you go. Stitches are covered, it's locked in place, and that's a good way to do it. But you always wanted to use those 2 individual lengths of thread instead of folding it in half. You'll get better results that way. My third tip is how you stitch with this floss. If you look at the instructions, they will usually say to do a full cross stitch. So let me zoom in just a tiny bit here. They'll usually say to do a full cross stitch. I want to show you what happens when you do that with different types of thread. First, I have a Bullfrog by Threadworx that has different shades of green, slightly variegated. Then I've got Blackberry by Threadworx that is a little more variegation in it. It's got some pinks and purples. And then I've got Threadworx in this wild red, white, and blue design. So let me show you what happens when you stitch with these threads using different methods. I am really going to zoom in here so you can see what I've done. Okay, this is the Bullfrog, the slightly variegated. I did a full X across and then back. So I completed my X's and just went back and forth. And you can see a little bit of variation. I don't know if you can quite see, but there's a little stripe down the center there of a lighter color. That's what happens when you do full X's in a big block. It doesn't matter too terribly much with this color, but then we can go to the thread that's a little more variegated, and you can see those stripes a little bit more. Again, I did full X's across and then back, and just went all the way down. And you can see I've got some stripes showing in there for sure. Then we went the highly variegated Threadworx floss, and you can see it's kind of crazy. Now, it's up to you what look you want. And again, if you're doing a smaller section or you're doing a line across, it might not be as obvious here as it is on these bigger blocks. So you could just see the look there. Now I want to show you the second method I used in this line. And here I did half a cross stitch across and then completed the X on the same line. Half across, completed the X. You can see it kind of broke up my line on this one. It's a little more even. This one, not a whole lot of difference. And this one, you could see, is just a complete mess. That is not very attractive because I did the half X, completed it half. It changed colors so often that it just really messed up the color scheme. But again, you can decide what look you like the most. My third example, I did random stitches. So I just kind of jumped around and did full X's, but I jumped around filling in spaces. And it kind of gave it more of a consistent confetti look, which I like a lot. But it depends on the area you're stitching and how you want it to look. So you have options when you're stitching with the variegated thread as to how it's going to look in the end. Now I'm showing cross stitch here, but the same principles apply to embroidery stitches. So you just have to keep in mind, how do I want it to look? How many threads am I using? How much of a space is it covering? And do I want the color to change a lot drastically, or do I want just more of a gradual look to it? So those are my examples: full cross stitch, half cross stitch, and then random stitches. My last tip is to pay attention when you're changing threads. So I ran out of thread. I need to thread my needle with some more. So you want to pay attention to what color you ended up on. In this case, I ended up on red, lots of red. So I don't want more red stitches next to it. I want to move on to the next color, which would be the blue. So when I thread my needle, I'm going to make sure that the blue starts first, which means I'm going to thread the opposite end. If I thread the end with the red, then my first stitches will be blue. Pretty simple, but it's something you don't necessarily think about, and all of a sudden you've got the wrong color going there. So just remember, it's the end away from your needle that is going to show up first. Well, those were my 5 favorite tips for stitching with variegated thread. But how about you? Do you have any more tips you'd like to share with us? Please let us know down below. We love to hear from you. While you're down there, don't forget to subscribe to our channel, and I will see you again soon.